I start with an apology. So I am not a medical doctor. I am not a medical researcher either. I am just a humble physicist, and it's a great honor to be here and have his lecture. But I think that I was invited because artificial intelligence is everywhere. So I will talk about how science is made possible by artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence pays back to sciences. But if we want to talk about artificial intelligence, we need to define, at least in some sense, what is intelligence. Actually, it is not defined. It is not easy to define because it is everywhere. So we know what intelligence is, but if we ask that, please define what is intelligence, it's quite hard. It's kind of similar in physics, that everyone knows what is time, but if you need to define what is time, then that's a problem, and physics still struggling with that. So, but in a sense, there are ourselves and there is the outside of the world. So this is a great division. And actually, we observe the outside world through our senses. So we have our eyes, ears, touch sensors, whatever, and these all provide information, and it all goes into our head, into our memory, into our brain, into our knowledge. And inside our brain, we make a model of the outside world. So it is already done in animals, even maybe in C. elegans that we heard yesterday. And for example, the caveman, he also made a model of the world. What are the animals? Which one of he need to fear of, or which one they can eat, and so on and so on. So we have a little model, a little virtual reality in our head. And what is science? So science, in a sense, an extended version of the intelligence. So we want to understand not just the everyday world around us, but we would like to understand deeper, smaller parts like cells, atoms, and the larger scale like the universe. But as we wanted to understand these things, we realized that our naturally given senses, like our eyes, are not enough to see faraway galaxies because they are too dim. So we had to extend our pupils to like several square meters to collect enough light to see the faraway galaxies. Or we cannot zoom onto cells or atoms, so we needed to invent a microscope. So actually our senses need crutches, that help to extend the naturally given senses and devices that evolution given to us. And as this loop goes around, so we observe the world with better and better equipments, better and better senses, we have better and better models, and we compare these models to reality, we correct the models if they are not good enough, and this goes around. And I start with one of the oldest science is astronomy. Yesterday, if you were here, Professor Chalfie told about what were the inventions that were needed for making iPhone. So it's about the same story. So we started far, far away, ancient Greeks, or now I just jumped to Tycho Brahe, Kepler, and Newton. So they wanted to understand why the sky is rotating. What are those tiny little shiny dots on the sky? And most of those shiny little dots just moving together, the crystal ball of the sky, but there are a few of them, which we call now planets, which are moving on this background. And on the top, you see the trajectory of Mars. And it's not a simple trajectory, but it has some kind of pattern. And the first thing is that we have data through our senses or our equipment, and we try to understand the patterns. What is this strange pattern? How can we describe that? What model we can make that describe this strange pattern? So this is one thing that we discovered, that there is something strange but regular, some pattern. Then the next step is that we have some rule. Like everyone have learned Kepler's law, the elliptical orbits. But this is still not the real explanation for such things. Okay, planets go on elliptical orbits, but why? And the third step is the real understanding, the causal understanding of things, that actually Newton's law, the law of gravity, that makes planets move around the sun. And I think that there may be similar examples in biology, like what causes breast cancer? One of the causes, mutations in BRCA gene. Okay, but why this causes cancer? We realize that BRCA gene is responsible for DNA repair, and of course, if that mutations make this gene not able to repair DNA errors, then of course all the cells will behave strangely and it may cause cancer. And this loop, this original loop, the original curiosity of people to understand the sky, understand the world, made it possible to make simpler models, like understand mechanics. And during the history of science, based on mechanics, we could understand thermodynamics, electrodynamics, quantum mechanics, and so on and so on. And on top of all this stuff, we can build technology. So on top of mechanics, we could make big buildings because we understood how mechanics and statics work. Based on electronics, we could make mobile phones or whatever. Okay? And now, based on all this stuff, we could make finally high-speed computers, GPUs, and so on and so on. And this process, this loop is going around, very, very fast. For medical sciences, I may compare to this how bacteria multiply. Even though domestos kills 99.9% of bacteria in your toilet, after 10 doubling, the number of bacteria will be the same. So that's exponential growth. And it's really, really fast. And computers, most of you are very young, but you still see that when you were very young, babies, whatever, the first mobile phone or first computer were kind of lame, okay? And now we have these huge capacity computers, and this changes everyday life and changes science. So after my PhD, I was lucky to be part of a big survey. Actually, this was the first attempt to map the 3D structure of the universe. So before that, in the 90s, there were no map for the universe, okay? You can imagine that, like before Columbus, Christoph, okay? And we set up a big telescope, which has a huge CCD. You see that CCD there. It has 120 megapixels. But at that time, half of the megapixels on the whole world was in that single telescope, okay? And it made possible a big discovery. We could scan the sky, and we have several millions of galaxies and put into 3D. And a few years passed by, and now you can put the same number of megapixels into your pocket. So you feel that in this short time span, in 20 years, like your age or whatever, from only one piece of this telescope contains that number of megapixels, now everyone could buy that, and we have this technology. And this is not just astronomy, of course, but this is happening in all sciences and every part of the world. For example, genomics. So the first map of human genome was about made at the same time, around 2000. At that time, it took 1.5 decades to make that first human genome sequencing. It costed about $3 billion, okay? So the salary of a professor is not enough for that, definitely. But now, it's about $100 sequencing a human genome. So it's going even faster. On that plot, you see the continuous line that's more slow, how computer hardware is getting cheaper and cheaper. And the dots, the graph, it is the cost of sequencing a human genome. And it's even faster. So in a simple term, we may say that in China, where they do both making the computers and the gene sequencing, they can sequence genome faster than they make the hard drives where you want to store the genome sequencing. So it's really, really, really fast. So in short, this is the state of sciences now, and almost all sciences now works on computers, works in the virtual space. So we have seen one part of the equation, our senses. And I argued that those senses are not scientific big instruments, equipments. So we need crutches. And on the other side, there is our brain. And humans are really, really proud of the brain, the top of evolution, whatever. But as a physicist, I may tell you that it's just a finite thing. It's somewhat about 1,000 grams, okay? Finite volume, huge but still finite number of cells. So it's not infinite. And we cannot handle a lot of stuff. So you see those, I try to make it funny, the specifications. Okay, so what is the speed? It's very, very slow compared to modern computers. The number of neurons is so-so. It's about the same now the number of transistors in this small device. Okay, but we are catching up. And we do not have Wi-Fi, we do not have GPS, and so on and so on. Okay? And on top of that, so the hardware is not for making sciences, but even the software is not made for that. So the software was for live your life, run away from predators, give your genes to the next generation. That's the software. So we definitely need artificial intelligence to extend, to have crutches to our minds too. And surprise, this year Physics Nobel Prize went to kind of invention of artificial neural networks, or AI. And the question is that why physicists? Actually, many of the physicists who are not working in this field were kind of baffled. So why AI is physics? Or is this end of physics that we cannot give Physics Nobel Prize to real physicists? So I will try to argue that why AI is physics and why this Nobel Prize is well deserved. So talking about neural networks, we know that there are real neural networks. And this is actually two maps. One is at the bottom. One is actually the scanning of the brain of fruit fly, Drosophila. It was done in this year. It has some over 100,000 neurons, 50 million connections. Okay, it's just a cubic millimeter. And the other side, there is the same size from the human brain. Okay, so if we would have wanted to understand neural networks through this, scan the brain, draw the whole map, and try to know that, it will be very, very far away. Okay, so it is still way more complex that we can handle. So what physicists do, they usually ignore a lot of stuff, neglect not just the girlfriends, but neglect all the details that are not necessary. So we project the huge dimensional input space, I may say, all the complexities into something simple that we, with our simple brain, we may understand. And one example is thermodynamics. You may remember that there are 6 times 10 to the 23 number of atoms in the box of gas, okay, in a mole of gas, and all have quantum mechanics and all these complexities. But we still can describe the major features of this with these 5 letters, P times V equals NKT, the basic law of ideal gases. So this is a big neglection of the details. And actually, the Hopfield model, for which the Nobel Prize went this year, was something like that. We ignore that all the complexities of neurons. We say that neurons are like atoms or little magnets. They have just 2 states, firing or not firing, pointing up or pointing down. And from that, they have connections. They interact with each other like neurons do. And we can make a network. And the network is like a little magnet where spins are interacting. And actually, a magnet can remember, in a sense, if you heat up a magnet, it loses its magnetization. If you cool it down, all the spins either point up or point down. So it may encode a completely black or white image. Okay, that's not that complex. But if you adjust the connection between those spins, you can make it remember any shape of image. Okay? And there is this analogy with energy surfaces, energy minimum, and so on, which was very, very powerful and started this whole movement of these artificial neural network fields. And they can be taught like small children are taught, like we are showing them images or they are seeing the word apples, pears, cats, dogs. We give labels that this is the kitty, this is the doggy, and so on and so on. And after, they make some kind of internal representation in their brain and can separate those classes. And after some learning period, they can, by themselves, tell which are cats and which are dogs. And actually, if we simplify again this in a mathematical form, it turns out that this is actually just linear algebra. You have been thinking of why do we learn these linear equations, but now you know that it is very cool. It's actually learning AI. And one thing is, one interesting part of neural networks, I will not say all of them, is just transforming the natural or raw modality space. When we see, for example, images, there are the pixels, but if you rotate the image, then all the pixels are scrambled up. Or if we have words, and I change a letter in a word, then the meaning of the word will be completely different, or maybe completely different. Okay? So that's one of the tasks of neural networks, that they reorganize, recombine the points in this raw modality, in this high-dimensional raw modality space, into a space where the real meaning comes out. And this is very powerful. We can do this with words, and not the letter form of the words, but the meaning of the words. And the vector from king to queen is the same than the vector from man to woman. Okay? So these are the real meaning of the words, or present tense, past tense. It's a vector in this high-dimensional space. But you can play this with faces, and the sliders can change from man to woman, or blonde to black, and so on and so on. So this is really powerful. And as we physicists have had already some knowledge of computer programming, linear algebra, and modeling of the world, this is my group with lots of talented young people and many collaborators in Hungary and abroad. And just a couple of examples what we do with this kind of stuff. This is a simple example, infectious diseases. So some infectious diseases are carried by so-called vector species like mosquitoes. They carry Zika, dengue, chikungunya, and lots of nasty stuff. And there is a citizen science project in Spain. It's a European collaboration with Spanish collaborators. They have a mobile phone app, Mosquito Alert. You have to download that and use it in the summer. And you take photos of mosquitoes, and for some time they manually separated or selected which are Asian tiger mosquitoes, which carry these diseases, and which are normal, ordinary mosquitoes. And we made an artificial intelligence model, transformed the original model that were for cats and dogs to recognize tiger mosquitoes. But we use it for many areas of sciences, space weather, cosmology, animal health, and I may list lots of them, but time is flying, so I go to the next part. So it is just a short history that our group and medical image analysis. So it started in 2016, when one of my very talented PhD students, Deju Ripley, was participating at an international challenge. Lots of computer scientists, PhDs were there, over 1,000, and the task was to diagnose mammography images. And at that time, so you may think that it is easy now, but at that time, no one thought that. And actually, he won the prize, whatever, and the level of the precision was on par with radiologists. And this was a big surprise. And we wanted to publish it in a radiology journal. We cut this report that this is not a research paper. They thought that this is not science. So we are working on this topic for decades, and we get not too far. And now a physics PhD student says that he has a magic box, that it can do this. This is not science. So this was rejected from the journal. Of course, later it appeared in another journal, and it became, lucky for us, the seminal paper on medical image analysis with artificial intelligence. And a couple of years goes by, and we can do this for histopathology images, which are huge images, often 100 1,000 times 100,000 pixels, and there are lots of things that we need to do. But at the first step, we needed to collect enough training set, and this was a collaboration with Semmelweis University. And 2 years passed, and now it is able to do not just the things that doctors can do with these images and with their eyes, but it can see patterns that pathologists cannot see, like patterns of which gene networks are active at which parts of the image. So it's kind of magic that it can see things that is beyond human vision and human understanding. Actually, it is, again, at many times, on the other side, there is the example from which we transformed the model. So actually, there are these image recognition models when you have text captions on Instagram or wherever, and there is the picture, and nothing is labeled that this is the dog or that is the dog, only the subscription. And actually, we use that method to color these images. And there are other modalities where humans are even weak to understand. So we are pretty good in looking at images. But think about gene networks, okay? There are more than 20,000 genes, okay? Types of genes, not pieces of genes, okay? And it's a big network, a really, really complex network. Let's just say 50 or whatever of them. So more than 100 or 500 times that number of, and this is a network. How can we handle that? And the question here is that whether AI, with its huge capacity, with the compute capacity, can handle that. Okay? And I am really hopeful that we may understand, for example, the molecular basis of aging. I am getting older, so I am really hopeful that it may happen. I skip this one. So there is a Moore's law for artificial intelligence also, and it is going very, very fast. And very quickly, I just want to go through what's happening now, and my time is up, but I still want to just year by year. So let's start 2022. It was not that far away. That was the born of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is only 2 years old. Please remember that, okay? And it is now everywhere. And it can draw images. At that time, it already was at the high school level. 1 year passed. It passed medical exam without preparing to it. It just read the whole internet, and it passed the US medical exam. Okay? It can design proteins. So not writing your name on the grain of rice, you can write your name out of proteins. Or it can design better gene fluorescence proteins than they are in the nature. It can produce videos. You have seen all the fake videos. Okay. And actually, it knows physics. You see that here, that dog in the snow. The falling of the snow or the moving of the snow, it knows the projectile motion, okay? So it's not just a low quality whatever video, it really knows physics and body of animals and so on and so on. So it's just interesting. And now we are in this year, September already, so things are going very, very fast. Okay, AI scientist, it can do the whole process. The idea, planning, putting together, now only in virtual space, so like computer experiments, putting together, writing the code, executing the code, making figures, and writing the paper. So that paper is not about this, but this is one of the papers that this AI scientist has wrote. And even if we have a blind test that which is the best, if AI has plans or humans has, actually AI is kind of beating us. So, and this year, Nobel Prize in Physics went to kind of AI, in chemistry for AlphaFold. AI, and people were thinking whether the literature will go. And actually, there are AI-generated poetry, which is as good as human-generated. She is an AI artist, and one of her artwork was sold for $1 million, and so on and so on. And also, they can control your computer, so that's the next thing. It's not just a passive chat interface, but it can click and do lots of stuff instead of you. So just coming to conclusion, the 2 Nobel Prize winners in physics, one was John Hopfield, and he was kind of upbeat. He is 90 years old, and he's happy that all this stuff, all this multidisciplinary actually stuff that was not really well get by other physicists, by physics. But this is very good, and he is very hopeful that it will improve sciences and many areas of life. But the other Nobel Prize winner, Geoffrey Hinton, who actually worked for Google, for example, for some time but quit it, he sees the dangers of it. So it's not just positive, but there are some problems. And of course, I will not go into the details, but this is a very, very, very powerful technology as we see. It's even more powerful than nuclear bomb, I may say. But I want to finish with some optimistic outcome. So sciences made possible miracles. As I mentioned, mechanics made possible 7-boot leaks or building pyramids and cathedrals. Thermodynamics made it possible to flow through oceans. We have the magic mirrors, of course, and hopefully AI will help this process, but this is not just a great opportunity, but a great responsibility also. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Professor Csabai, and thanks a lot, István. This is very exciting. Are there any questions from the audience? You are very welcome to ask questions, formulate it. While you are thinking, I was just wondering whether I did understand this correctly, that last week ChatGPT announced that they have the latest version, which is at the PhD level. That was my sort of understanding, so that comes to the next.
Yes, so actually we are experimenting with my PhD students, this AI scientist, and trying to solve a real problem that we are thinking of them. So we give it the first version, and it can really improve on that. And so we use it in daily work. So for writing computer programs, it helps a lot. Putting up ideas, it helps a lot. And the new models are not just like the ChatGPT that in 1 second it answers everything, but it thinks in loops. It answers something, think again, answers something, think again. And I think this is really going fast, and kind of a little bit, I think, frightening thing, this computer control, that we allow it to click. Actually, there was this example I've seen at one of our collaboration with NIH, that they actually tried this. There was the idea that please do this, whatever bioinformatics stuff. It went to the internet, read related papers, searched PubMed, read the related papers, come up with an idea, checked what kind of data it needs, went to the databases, downloaded the data, analyzed the data, and put out graphs, all by alone. Okay, so I think this is really fast, and so in a sense, I think that we are not ready for that, but that's mostly your task, young generation, how to use it for good.
Next generation. Any questions to you from the audience? How many of you have tried ChatGPT? Clicked on ChatGPT ever? Practically everybody. Okay, good. Yes?
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting presentation, and you gave great examples. And you also mentioned that. Thank you. You also mentioned that AI can, after analyzing the data and putting out the graphs, write a paper. And that's a huge debate currently in scientific publishing, whether AI should be used or should be eliminated from writing parts of the paper or the whole paper. And as I see it, the publishers are very much against it, to use AI in writing papers. So I would like to ask you, what is your opinion?
Yes, so I do not tell my opinion, rather I say that we cannot do anything. Okay, so it is there, and how can you prevent it? So actually, I remember when my kids went to school, and they say have to write something about the life of Sándor Petőfi or whatever. But it was said that do not use Wikipedia, where all this stuff is there. Go the hard way, go to a library or whatever, ancient stuff, and read from books or whatever and collect the very same information that's already there. So I think that we have to build on top of that, okay? So do not allow this or try to check whether AI... Actually, in scientific papers, most part of the papers are just needless, I may say, or junk. So the introduction, everyone knows what is it about, and so on, other stuff, whatever, and there is a little part that is really meaningful. And I think that in many sense, AI just brings to our vision that actually many stuff was really useless and not really good, including education, because there is the same debate in education. So I cannot give out now homeworks. A few years ago, homeworks were okay. After internet, they could copy something, but I could check that. But now, I can give out have some idea, make some project, do it, write some report, and it can do it. It can do it with all, and I am not able to find. If this is really good, then it should be AI, okay? So that's it. I am not sure what is the answer, but I think that we have to live with that and build top of it.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the audience? Zoltán?
Maybe I could formulate a question also. It's a very fascinating topic, of course. And we all agree that all these kind of technologies that are surrounding us and will somehow influence, either we want it or not, can also limit our capacities in the future because they replace lots of activities that we were facing and we just could not avoid. Just like when I enter to Szeged by car, I follow my GPS, yeah. and I don't pay attention to the geographical location and don't have to read the map. In fact, I arrive to the place where I should be, and I have no idea where I am. Yeah. And this is the same thing with artificial intelligence, I believe, that if we are not educated enough, we can be really led to directions that might not meet our expectations. And now, to cut the long introduction somewhat shorter, I would like to ask you whether we can see a benefit for the future in AI technologies in a sense that currently we are educating the system AI, and of course it extends our capacities with computational speed, with capacity, pattern recognition, whatever. Can we arrive to a stage when AI starts to educate us so that we can utilize our brain better than we are doing now with kinds of algorithms that we were not considering at all?
Yeah, actually, I have many answers. So I am that point already. So AI educate me. So I ask a lot of stuff about physics. So I am working on part of physics, but do not know particle physics or some fields which are very fascinating, but I do not know, and I am too old to ask anyone because it's just kind of asking basic things about physics. It's just very bad. A professor, member of Hungarian Academy, whatever, and I just ask basic. But in secret, I cannot ask ChatGPT, and it's. The other thing is that, do you know what is this year's word? In each year there is a word of the year, like selfie stick or something like that. This year's word is brain rot, okay? Your GPS, and you do not know where to go, just let it. But on the positive note, so actually I think that it's better to think of this AI not like another person who is smarter than us. It is just the compilation of all human knowledge, all the thousands of years what science put together, and finally we digitized it, put onto the internet, put into digital form, and it is a collection of all human knowledge, science and everything. And I think that we need to handle this in this way, that we have access, we have a very powerful indexing technology or searching technology for searching and accessing human knowledge, and on top of, like, standing on the shoulder of giants, okay? But it's now easy to stand on the shoulders of, you do not need to go to one of the giants, okay? So it's all completely there, and we can stand on top of that, and we can do many things much faster. So actually, I mentioned that my PhD students and myself, also if I write a code, GPT or other tools help me, and we can code 3 times or 5 times faster and solve the same problem. Or what was my PhD topic back in old times, okay? Now it's a homework from one week to the other to students, okay? So I think that it speeds up, but of course it's again a question whether we can handle that speed, which is already too fast, at least for me.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you.
And now we have to hand over the recognition of the Academy for you for this wonderful presentation. Thank you very much.